The alarm screamed through Admiral Kim Juno's head at 3 in the morning, pulling him from deep sleep. His neural implant burned with urgent data as he rolled out of his bunk aboard the space station Aegis Prime. The quantum sensors were going crazy. Something huge was coming through hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Kim Juno stumbled to the command center, still pulling on his uniform. Lieutenant Park Hannah was already at her station, her face pale as she stared at the readings. "Sir, we have 40-7. Wait, no. 63 ships coming through," she said, her voice shaking. "They're enormous. Each one is at least 3 kilometers long." Kim Juno rubbed his eyes and looked at the holographic display. What he saw made his blood freeze. Massive alien ships were appearing in perfect formation, their black holes seeming to swallow light itself. Strange markings covered their sides, what looked like trophies from 100 different worlds they had conquered. The lead ship began broadcasting something, not words or sounds, but pure thoughts that somehow reached directly into their minds. Asterisk, surrender, submit, serve. Asterisk, the message was simple and cold, carrying with it images of burning worlds and broken civilizations. These aliens, whoever they were, had done this many times before. "Get President Lee Jimin on the emergency line right now," Kim Juno ordered. "And wake up Dr. Song Hyo in the underground labs. Tell her it's time to open the sealed vaults." Park Hannah looked confused. "Sir, what vaults?" Kim Juno's face was grim. "The ones we hoped we'd never have to use." Far below on Earth, the alien fleet's leader, War Chief Vexstar, studied the primitive blue planet with satisfaction. His people, the Zephyrian hegemony, had conquered hundreds of worlds just like this one. The humans were a young species, barely able to travel between planets, and they spent most of their time fighting each other over stupid things like land and resources. "Begin standard bombardment protocol," Vexstar ordered his weapons officer. "Target their major cities first. Break their spirit. Then we move in for cleanup." The alien ships opened fire. Massive beams of energy lanced down from orbit, striking Seoul, London, and New York. Buildings vaporized in seconds. Millions of people died in the first few minutes, but deep underground, something else was happening. In hidden facilities buried kilometers beneath the Earth's surface, ancient computers began to wake up. These were places so secret that even most world leaders had forgotten they existed. Places where humanity's best and brightest had spent decades creating weapons for wars they prayed would never come. Dr. Song Hyo was sleeping in her quarters, 3 kilometers below the Korean mountains, when the emergency alarm pulled her from her dreams. She had worked on these projects for 20 years, hoping she would never see this day. "Doctor, we have a code black scenario," her assistant said over the intercom. "The president has authorized full activation." Song Hyo's hands trembled as she dressed. Code black meant only one thing: humanity was facing extinction. The weapons they had locked away were designed for exactly this situation, but using them would change everything. She made her way through the underground corridors to the main laboratory. Massive blast doors lined the walls, each one marked with biohazard warnings and radiation symbols. Behind those doors slept humanity's greatest and most terrible creations. "Are you sure about this?" she asked President Lee Jimin over the secure video link. Above them, Seoul was burning under alien fire. 12 million people are already dead, the president replied. "If we don't use everything we have, there won't be anyone left to save." Song Hyo nodded and began entering the unlock codes. The first set of doors began to slide open with a sound like grinding stone. Beyond them lay rows of glass tubes filled with blue liquid. Inside each tube floated a human figure. But these weren't normal people anymore. These were the Cerberus subjects' volunteers, who had let scientists change their DNA into something more than human. Enhanced strength, faster healing, and immune systems that could adapt to any biological weapon. They had been sleeping for 15 years, waiting for a threat big enough to wake them. In the first tube, Captain Namte opened his eyes as the liquid drained away. His pupils dilated far beyond normal human range, and his enhanced hearing immediately picked up the vibrations from the bombardment happening kilometers above. "How long have I been sleeping?" he asked, his voice carrying strange harmonic tones that hadn't been there before the genetic changes. 15 years, Song Hyo replied. "The aliens arrived 18 hours ago. Conventional military forces can't stop them." Namte smiled, and Song Hyo felt a chill run down her spine. The genetic modifications had enhanced more than just physical abilities. They had awakened predatory instincts that evolution had spent millions of years suppressing in humans. Across the globe, similar scenes played out in other hidden facilities. In Siberia, swarms of intelligent nanobots came online. In the Pacific depths, biological weapons that could think and evolve began stirring to life. The Zephyrian ground forces began landing in the smoking ruins of human cities. Expecting easy conquest, War Chief Vextar watched the deployment with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan, but in the shadows of the burning cities, humanity's monsters were beginning to hunt. Dr. Song Hyo's hands shook as she typed the final unlock code into the glowing terminal. The Cerberus facility around her buzzed with energy it had not used for 15 years. Most world leaders had hoped this day would never come. "Are you really sure about this, Doctor?" General Choi Dae asked through the video screen. His face looked tired and scared. Above them, 3 kilometers up, Seoul was burning under alien attacks. But down here, in the deep underground lab, they were about to wake up something much more dangerous than the aliens. The Zephyrians killed 12 million people in just the first few hours, Song Hyo said, trying to keep her voice calm. "We built Project Cerberus for exactly this kind of threat. Our entire species is in danger." The huge metal doors began to open with a sound like breaking rocks. Behind them were rows of glass tubes, filled with blue liquid. Inside each tube floated a person who had once been completely human. These were the Cerberus subjects' brave volunteers, who had let scientists change their DNA into something beyond normal human limits. The changes made them incredibly strong, able to heal from almost any wound, and gave them immune systems that could fight off any disease or poison, even alien ones. In the first tube, Captain Namte began to wake up as the blue liquid drained away. When his eyes opened, Song Hyo saw that his pupils could grow much larger than normal human eyes. His enhanced hearing immediately caught the sound of explosions happening far above them. His changed brain was already studying the patterns of the alien weapons. "How long was I sleeping?" he asked. His voice sounded different. Now it had strange musical tones that had not been there before the genetic changes. "You have been asleep for 15 years, Song Hyo told him. "The aliens arrived 18 hours ago. Our normal military forces cannot stop them." Namte smiled, and Song Hyo felt cold fear run through her body. The genetic changes had made him much more than just physically stronger. They had awakened hunting instincts that humans had buried deep inside themselves millions of years ago, around the world. Similar scenes were happening in other secret facilities. In the frozen wastelands of Siberia, Project Medusa was starting up. This was a swarm of tiny robot drones controlled by artificial intelligence. The drones could think for themselves, learn from their mistakes, and even build more drones using any materials they could find. Far beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a laboratory built on the sea floor, Project Hydra was waking up. This was the most dangerous project of all biological weapons that could think, learn, and change themselves. They could evolve in real time to become whatever they needed to be to survive and spread. On the surface, War Chief Vextar of the Zephyrian forces watched his troops take over the human cities. He felt very satisfied with how the invasion was going. The orbital bombardment had destroyed most human communication systems and killed their military leaders. The remaining human resistance was weak and disorganized. Report from Ground Team Alpha, his communications officer said. The human city of Sol is secured. Minimal resistance encountered. Vexstar nodded. This was exactly what he expected. Humans were a young species that had never faced a real threat from space. Their weapons were primitive, and they spent most of their time fighting each other instead of preparing for real dangers. But then something strange started happening. His forward scout teams, the ones sent ahead to check for remaining human forces, stopped sending reports back to base. Communications Officer Vexstar called. Contact Scout Team 7. I want a status update. Sir, I have been trying to reach them for the past 30 minutes. No response. What about Scout Team 12? Also no response, sir. In fact, we have lost contact with all forward scout teams in sectors 4 through 9. Vexstar frowned. This was unusual, but not impossible. Human cities had many places to hide, and perhaps the scouts were just being extra careful. Or maybe the humans had some kind of jamming technology he did not know about. Send Squadron Leader Corthin with a full squad to investigate, he ordered. I want to know what happened to our scouts. 3 hours later, Squadron Leader Corthin's panicked voice came through the communication system. Command, this is Corthin. We found the remains of Scout Team 7, but, sir, this does not make sense. Their armor was torn apart from the inside, and there are claw marks on the metal that our scans cannot identify. Explain, Vexstar demanded. Sir, whatever killed them was incredibly strong and fast. The energy weapon burns show that our scouts got off several shots, but the creature kept coming, and, sir, there's something else. We found tracks leading away from the scene. They start as normal human footprints, but they change as they go. They become something else. Before Vexstar could respond, the communication cut to static. Then a new voice came through the speakers, a human voice speaking perfect Zephyrian language. Thank you for the weapons, the voice said calmly. We are learning much from studying your technology and your biology. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian command center in shocked silence. Vexstar stared at the communications panel, a cold feeling growing in his chest. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, the Zephyrian hegemony had encountered something that frightened them. The hunt had begun. War Chief, Vexstar stared at the glowing map on his command table. Red dots marked where his soldiers had disappeared. Not killed in battle, not captured, just gone. The pattern made no sense. Human weapons were supposed to be weak and primitive. Sir, we have a message from Ground Team 7, his communications officer said nervously. The speaker crackled to life, and at first there was only static. Then clear sounds came through that made even Vexstar's experienced soldiers back away from their stations in fear. Zephyrian soldiers were screaming. This is Squad Leader Corthin, came a panicked voice through the noise. We are in the ruins of Sol. Something is hunting us. It moves too fast for our sensors to follow. Our energy weapons hit it, but barely slow it down. We need help, right? The transmission suddenly cut to silence. Then a new voice spoke. A human voice, but it was speaking perfect Zephyrian language. Your weapons are very interesting, the voice said calmly. We will study them carefully, and we will study your bodies too. In the underground command center, beneath Sol, Captain Nam Te looked at the alien armor he had taken from his latest kill. The Zephyrians were big and strong, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick natural armor and backup organs, in case the main ones got damaged. But they had evolved on a safe world, where the dangers were always the same. They had never fought predators that could think, learn, and change their hunting methods with every kill. The genetic changes in Nam Te's body let him understand Cypherian battle tactics instantly. He learned how they moved, how they communicated, and where they were weak. Each time he fought them, he got better at killing them. What had started as one enhanced human was becoming the perfect alien hunting machine, high above Earth. Something else was happening to the Cypherian ships in orbit. Tiny robot drones from Project Medusa had reached their space platforms. The nanodrones were so small, they could slip through the aliens' energy shields. There were so many of them that the ship defenses could not stop them all, and they were smart enough to learn from every failed attack. Lieutenant Colonel Bayman watched from the underground control room as the drones got inside a Zephyrian warship. The ship's lights started blinking in strange patterns. The tiny robots were taking control of the ship's computers and turning the alien technology against its own crew. Amazing, whispered Dr. Yang Su, the scientist in charge of the Medusa project. They are not just breaking the ship. They are learning how to build more drones using alien materials. But the most frightening thing was happening in the zones, where Project Hydra had been released. The biological weapons had found Zephyrian genetic material and did exactly what they were designed to do. They absorbed it and used it to change themselves. The first hybrid creatures barely looked like they had ever been connected to humans. They could survive in the vacuum of space, eat alien technology for food, and make more of themselves by converting enemy biological matter. They spread through the alien landing zones like a disease. But a disease that could think and plan. Captain Namte moved through the dark streets of ruined Seoul like a shadow. His enhanced eyes could see perfectly in the darkness, and his modified ears could hear a Zephyrian heartbeat from 3 blocks away. He had already killed 47 alien soldiers, and each kill taught him something new. A squad of 5 Zephyrians was moving carefully through the rubble, checking each building for human survivors. They moved in perfect formation, weapons ready, scanning for threats. But they were looking for normal humans with normal weapons. Namte dropped silently from a collapsed building behind them. His claws, grown from modified bone and cartilage, sliced through the first soldier's armor like paper, before the others could turn around. He had already moved to the second target. The Zephyrians fired their energy weapons, but Namte was no longer where their sensors said he should be. His enhanced reflexes let him move faster than their targeting computers could track. In less than 30 seconds, all 5 aliens were dead. Namte picked up one of their communication devices and spoke into it, using their own language. "This is Captain Namte of Earth Defense Force," he said calmly. "I want to thank you for visiting our planet. You have taught us so much about your species, your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears. We look forward to meeting more of you." In space, the Medusa nanodrones had taken complete control of 3 Zephyrian cruisers. The tiny robots were using the ship's own manufacturing systems to build millions more of themselves. Soon they would have enough drones to attack the entire alien fleet. On the ground, the Hydra creatures had evolved beyond anything their creators had imagined. They could now fly short distances, communicate through bioelectrical pulses, and reproduce by simply touching other organic matter. They were spreading faster than the aliens could contain them. War Chief Vexstar looked at his status reports with growing horror. In just 6 hours, he had lost 60% of his ground forces and 12 orbital platforms. Whatever these humans had unleashed was turning his technological advantages against him. He sent one final message to the main hegemony fleet. "Forget conquest. Destroy this planet completely. These creatures must not be allowed to spread to other worlds." But even as he sent the message, he knew it was too late. The monsters were already learning to reach the stars. High Admiral Zorthak had conquered 47 worlds in his long military career. As his huge reinforcement fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, he expected to find War Chief Vexter finishing up another easy conquest. Instead, his sensors showed something that should have been impossible. Warships were flying in formation around Earth, but they were sending out human identification signals. "This is very strange," Zorthak muttered to himself, studying the readings. Suddenly, his communications officer received a message. "Admiral, we have an incoming transmission from the cruiser De Han Minguk." The message came through in perfect Zephyrian language, but the accent was clearly human. "This is Captain Obina, commanding the captured cruiser, De Han Minguk, requesting permission to dock and transfer prisoners." Zorthak's jaw dropped. In confusion, humans were supposed to be a primitive species with simple brains. They could not possibly learn to pilot Zephyrian ships. The quantum biological control systems took decades of special training to master, and human nervous systems were not built for it. "Sir," his sensor operator said, his voice shaking with fear, "I am reading massive biological signatures on those ships. But the life signs do not match human or Zephyrian patterns. They are something else entirely." Zorthak felt a cold chill run down his spine. "What do you mean, something else?" Before the operator could answer, the De Han Minguk opened its docking bays. What came out were not human prisoners as expected. Instead, creatures that looked like nightmares floated through space toward the Zephyrian fleet. These things moved with deadly grace through the vacuum of space. Their bodies seemed to shift and change as Zorthak watched. Sometimes they looked almost human, but then their forms would twist into something completely alien. The Hydra biological weapons had evolved far beyond what their human creators had ever imagined. Captain Obina herself appeared on the main screen. She had once been a normal human special forces officer, but now she was barely recognizable. The Cerberus genetic modifications had absorbed Zephyrian DNA and given her abilities that no human should possess. She had backup organs, enhanced strength, and most importantly, the brain modifications needed to control alien technology. "Admiral Zorthak," she said. Her voice carried strange musical tones that seemed to speak directly to his deepest fears. "Your species made a very big mistake when you came to our world. You woke up things that were sleeping for very good reasons. The battle that followed lasted exactly 43 minutes. The hybrid creatures moved through the Zephyrian reinforcement fleet like a plague, spreading through a body. They converted or destroyed everything they touched. The tiny Medusa nanodrones turned the ship's own weapons against their crews. The biological horrors absorbed alien, genetic material and became even more dangerous." Zorthak watched in terror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by monsters that had once been human. These creatures did not just fight, they learned and adapted. With each passing second, every Zephyrian they killed made them stronger and smarter. Emergency evacuation protocols. Zorthak screamed, "All surviving ships, retreat immediately." But it was too late for most of his fleet. Only a handful of ships managed to escape in emergency pods. And even those survivors carried something much worse than military defeat. Microscopic spores from the Hydra creatures had attached to their ships and would spread to wherever they went. Down on Earth, President Li Jimin stood in the ruins of what had once been the Blue House, the presidential residence. She watched as the hybrid creatures that had once been her citizens loaded stolen alien technology onto captured Zephyr transport ships. The monsters they had created had saved humanity from extinction, but the cost was becoming clear. These creatures were no longer fully human. They thought differently, acted differently, and wanted different things than normal people. Dr. Song Hyo approached the president. Her appearance had changed to after exposure to the Hydra organisms. Her eyes were sharper, her movements more fluid, and there was something predatory in the way she smiled. "Madam President," Dr. Song Hyo said, "our enhanced forces are requesting permission to follow the escaping aliens back to their home worlds." Li Jimin looked up at the stars. Through the smoking atmosphere, she could see the hybrid creatures already boarding captured alien ships. They were preparing to leave Earth and hunt the Zephyrians across the galaxy. The monsters humanity had created to defend them were no longer content to stay on one planet. They wanted to explore, to hunt, to spread. Do they really need our permission? Li Jimin asked quietly. Song Hyo tilted her head, considering the question. No, probably not. But they still remember being human enough to ask. Li Jimin closed her eyes and made the decision that would change the galaxy forever. Permission. Granted. God help us all. High above, the hybrid creatures received a message and began their departure. They had learned everything they could from the Zephyrians on Earth. Now it was time to visit the aliens' homeworlds and learn even more. The hunt was spreading to the stars, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The capital world of Zenthari had never been conquered in 3,000 years. Massive defense platforms floated in orbit around the planet, each one powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. Energy shields covered the whole world like a protective bubble that no enemy had ever broken through. When the first human hybrid ships appeared at the edge of the star system, Supreme Commander Yorthon was not worried. He activated every defense system the Zephyrian hegemony had ever built. It was not enough. YOR, single quotes N, watched from his command tower as the creatures that had once been human tore through his mighty defense fleet like hungry wolves attacking sheep. These monsters had learned to think like Zephyrians, use Zephyrian technology better than its creators, and most terrifying of all, they could reproduce by absorbing Zephyrian genetic material. Sir, the outer defense platforms are completely gone, his assistant reported, his voice shaking with fear. The tiny robot swarms are not just destroying our systems. They are turning our own metal and circuits into more robots. Down on the planet's surface, the hybrid creatures that had once been called Projects Cerberus, Medusa, and Hydra worked together like parts of one giant organism. They moved through Zephyrian cities, not like invading armies, but like a force of nature. They absorbed, changed, and spread through everything they touched. The few Zephyrian civilians who managed to escape told horrible stories. They spoke of creatures that sometimes looked like the humans they used to be, but moved with purpose that was completely inhuman. Captain Namte, now more monster than man, stood in the ruins of the hegemony's main government building. His enhanced senses could smell the fear chemicals that scared aliens released into the air. He could track these fleeing creatures across light years of space if he needed to. The genetic changes that had once made him a super soldier had evolved far beyond what anyone had planned. Give me a report, he said. His voice now carried sound frequencies that could speak human language and alien biopatterns at the same time. Dr. Yang Su answered him. She had once been a human scientist, but now her body was a perfect mix of human intelligence and alien biological advantages. 43 hegemony worlds have been converted, or completely abandoned. The remaining alien populations are running away, toward the edge of the galaxy. We calculate that their entire civilization will collapse within 18 months. Back on Earth, the few normal humans who were still alive watched the stars with mixed feelings. They felt proud that their species had survived, but they also felt terrified. The monsters they had created were no longer truly human, and their hunger to grow and change seemed to have no limits. In the deep underground archives of the old Cerberus facility, a recorded message from Dr. Song Hyo played over and over again, for anyone who might someday find it. We created them to save humanity from being wiped out. We succeeded in that goal. But by doing this, we may have doomed the entire galaxy to something much worse than conquest. We gave them evolution without limits, adaptation without end. We made them to be monsters that could destroy our enemies. We never thought about what they might become when there were no more enemies left to fight. The Zephyrian hegemony sent out one final message before their civilization fell completely. They broadcast it on every frequency, in every language known to galactic civilization. Warning to all intelligent species, stay away from the star system called Sol 3. The creatures there still call themselves human, but they are something completely different now. They came from a small blue planet, and they will come for you next. They do not want to conquer you or steal your resources. They spread because it is simply their nature to grow, to adapt, to become whatever they need to be. We came to their world seeking victory. Instead, they gave us extinction. Learn from our mistake and run while you still can. The message ended, but across the galaxy, other alien species were already detecting the approach of hybrid fleets. Radio telescopes picked up the signatures of ships that moved faster than anything should be able to move. Long-range sensors detected biological signatures that defied classification. On a distant world, the peaceful Altarian Republic received the Zephyrian warning message. Their leaders gathered an emergency session to discuss what it meant. How dangerous can one small planet be? Asked their Prime Minister. The answer came sooner than expected. 3 months later, strange ships appeared in Altarian space. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they sent a simple message in perfect Altarian language. We are from Earth. We come in peace to learn about your species. We hope you will teach us about your biology, your technology, your culture. In return, we will show you wonders beyond your imagination. But the Altarians had received the Zephyrian warning. They knew what learning meant to these creatures. The evacuation of the Altarian homeworld began immediately. Across the galaxy, humanity's children were spreading among the stars. They carried with them their creator's will to survive, and their terrifying ability to become whatever they needed to be. The age of human monsters had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.